Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a ritual from the Golden Dawn tradition. It's called the Invoking Pentagram Ritual of Water. We're working with a document that describes the whole practice, and yeah, it's got some pretty interesting components to it. We've got archangels, visualization, and, well, a lot of symbolism based on water.
Right, yeah. Water is definitely front and center in this one, which, it makes you think about how water is used in all sorts of different spiritual traditions. You know, the way it represents purification, transformation, even the subconscious mind.
So, I mean, right away we're seeing this is probably more than just like a simple water blessing or something. It seems like it's meant to uh, work with something deeper. But let's get into the specifics here. The document lays out a pretty particular sequence of actions, and it all starts with something called the Kabbalistic cross.
Yeah. The Kabbalistic cross, that's a really important part of a lot of different esoteric traditions. Not just the Golden Dawn, it's not just a gesture. You know, it's more about connecting with divine energy, bringing it down from the spiritual realm into the physical world, using your own body as that connection.
Okay, that's interesting. And then there's all this stuff about tracing pentagrams in different directions. I know pentagrams have that association with magic in general. But what's their specific significance here? Why are we tracing them? And why in these specific directions?
Well, yeah. Pentagrams are important in lots of magical systems, but within the Golden Dawn, they have this specific meaning because each point of the pentagram is linked to one of the five elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. So by tracing them in these specific directions, and while also saying these divine names, well, the practitioner is supposedly activating these elemental forces and creating the sacred space for the ritual to happen
So
in.
it's almost like you're drawing those energies into the space around you, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. And the document also talks a lot about visualizing these specific archangels uh, connected with each direction. Raphael in the east, Gabriel in the west, Michael in the south, and Uriel in the north. And it's not just like picturing them being there. It's more about really visualizing them in detail.
Exactly. It even describes like what they look like, what they're wearing. You know, Raphael in robes of yellow and violet, Gabriel rising from the sea, Michael, he has that flaming sword, Uriel's got ripened wheat. It's almost like you're creating this whole scene in your mind, like from a dream. And all that detail is important because the Golden Dawn puts a big emphasis on the power of visualization, right? They believe that by focusing your imagination, you can actually shape your reality, not just internally, but like in the real world too.
That's really fascinating. So it's not just symbolic. There's this intention to actually manifest something with this visualization.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think about how in modern psychology, we talk about the power of visualization, how it affects our subconscious mind, even if we don't realize it's happening.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it really makes you wonder what kind of effect a ritual like this would have on someone psychologically, especially if they're doing it regularly. You know, the document mentions this ritual is specifically for those who are in what they call the practicus grade. So that's like a pretty early stage in the Golden Dawn system.
So it could be that this visualization is like a training process for the mind, sort of prepping them for some of the more complex rituals they'll be doing later on.
Right. That's a possibility.
But even at this early stage, there's this one phrase that really stuck with me. It says, "For about me flames the pentagram, and in the column shines the six-rayed star." What's going on with that imagery?
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful line. I think the flaming pentagram probably refers to that circle of protective energy that's been built up through the ritual, like a shield of energy surrounding you.
Okay, so that's the pentagram. And what about the star?
Well, the six-rayed star, sometimes called the Star of David or the Seal of Solomon, it represents the macrocosm, the whole universe. So putting it all together, the line could be pointing to this idea of the individual merging with the forces of the universe, the microcosm and the macrocosm becoming one.
Wow. Okay, so this ritual that's supposed to be about water might actually be about connecting to something way, way bigger.
It might be.
It makes me think about how the Golden Dawn was really into that idea that everything is connected, that we're not just these separate beings, but part of this huge web of energy and consciousness.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really fascinating part of this ritual, the prayer of the undines. This is where things get really interesting because it's not addressed to a god in the traditional sense, but to the elemental spirits of water. So the Golden Dawn, they believed that all of nature is like infused with consciousness, including the elements. And they saw the Undines as these powerful beings, like with control over water. And this prayer is, all about forming that connection with them.
Yeah. And the language in this prayer is it's pretty strong. It talks about the terrible king of the sea, and it's acknowledging his power over the waters. It's not afraid to show that side of the element, the power.
Yeah, that's right. It's like there's this deep respect for how powerful water can be. Because it can give life, but it can also be really destructive. It's not just some peaceful little stream. It's the force that shapes the earth, carves out canyons, creates coastlines.
Right. So it's recognizing that duality. Like water can be beautiful and gentle, but it can also be this incredibly powerful force. And I noticed the prayer also talks about water being the blood of the earth and then becoming the sap of plants. It's like it's pointing out how connected everything is and how water sustains life at its most basic level.
Exactly. It's written so poetically, but it's also based on this deep understanding of the natural world. And the Golden Dawn was all about finding those connections, right? Those like hidden links between us and the universe.
Yeah, I see that. And there's this theme that keeps coming up about purification and transformation. It all kind of leads up to that line, the water, the blood, and the tears for the remission of sins. It feels almost like a baptism or something, washing away the old to make room for something new.
Yeah, it's definitely powerful imagery. And it brings up a question. What's the point of this whole ritual?
Yeah.
Why go through all these steps? What is the practitioner trying to accomplish?
Right, exactly. It does seem like there's something more to it than just a symbolic gesture, especially since the document says this ritual is meant to be done every day.
Yeah, that daily practice is important. Remember, we're talking about an introductory ritual for people who are just starting out in the Golden Dawn system. So this daily practice, it could be about building a foundation, developing some skills, cultivating a specific awareness.
So it's like a daily meditation, but one that's very specifically designed to align you with water and the energies associated with water.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. It's not just about feeling good or having a cool visualization. It's about actively engaging with those energies, building a connection with them, and maybe even learning how to direct them.
Which is, I mean, that's kind of a wild idea. Like the Golden Dawn was basically saying that we're not just watching the universe happen around us, we can actually shape it.
Mm.
We can use rituals and practices like this to participate in creating our own reality.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to a question that I think a lot of people have when they hear about stuff like this. Is it all just symbolic, or do they actually believe it can affect the real world?
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, where's the line between what's happening inside you and what's actually happening out in the world?
It's complicated. I think the answer depends on who you ask. But it's important to remember that the Golden Dawn, they believed that rituals could create change, both internally and externally. They saw the universe as this, like, web of energy, and they believed that if you tapped into that energy, you could change how things flow.
So it's not just about invoking these forces. It's about learning how to work with them, to maybe even guide them towards something specific.
Right. And the document even hints at that when it says that the ritual invokes the energy and call the spiritual forces into one's temple or ritual space. It's about making that connection with those forces and opening yourself up to their influence.
But then that leads to another question, like what exactly are those forces and how would they show themselves? How would you even know they were there?
Well, that's where it gets a little bit mysterious. The Golden Dawn system, it gives you a framework, but everyone's experience within that framework is going to be different. Personal.
It's like we're getting into some pretty intense stuff now.
Yeah.
Talking about a system that encourages you to connect with forces you can't even see. And then, maybe even shape your reality with them. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah. It definitely is. And I think that's why it's so important to approach these kinds of practices with respect and with a good sense of what you're doing. The Golden Dawn, it wasn't just about, gaining power. It was about transforming yourself, spiritual growth. It was about understanding those hidden forces, the ones working behind the scenes in the universe, and then learning to work with them in the right way, ethically.
Right. So it's not about just getting whatever you want. It's about being aware of what might happen because of what you do and trying to do things for the greater good.
Exactly. And that's something that people don't always talk about when it comes to magic or, esoteric traditions. It's not about controlling the universe to get what you want personally. It's more about understanding its natural laws and how to work within those laws.
Yeah, that makes sense. So after looking at all of this ritual, what would you say are the most important things for listeners to remember? What are you hoping they'll take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that there's more to reality than we can see. The Golden Dawn system, with all of its rituals and symbols, it reminds us that there are like hidden layers of meaning and energy all around us, woven into our existence.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to figure out the secret code of the universe.
Hmm.
And using rituals like this, the Invoking Pentagram ritual of water, to tap into its power.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. And I know the Golden Dawn system can seem complicated, maybe even a little intimidating, but I think the basic ideas are really beautiful. It's about seeing how everything's connected, the power of our own minds, and how we can transform ourselves if we focus our intentions and practice.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about, especially that idea that even water, something so simple, can have so much symbolic and energetic power.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good note to end on, to leave our listeners with a sense of wonder and a desire to learn more. The Golden Dawn system, it shows us a world of hidden meanings and possibilities, and it encourages us to explore those possibilities, to stay open-minded.
I love that. Well said. And who knows what other mysteries we'll uncover in our next deep dive. Until then, keep those minds curious and never stop learning.